What was the journey behind the brand, behind the company, and what is your why? What is the mission? Why did you start it to begin with?
That's a good starting point. So the journey behind EQIFI was actually started with EQIBank. In 2015, Jason Blick, who is my co-founder, decided that the existing banks were not servicing their clients the way they can with technology and with an inclusive approach. So after he sold his first bank for 1.2 billion, he decided to start EQIBank. So he started the banking journey quite a few years ago. And that allowed us to really move fast into DeFi and banking because we already had our banking license. We had very good relationships with our regulators, and that usually takes a lot of time. I mean, 2 to 3 years is usually what you're looking at for a new banking license to be issued if all the conditions are met and stars are aligned. So fast forward to last year, in 2020, I've known Jason for quite a bit of time, and we were friends. Before becoming really close business partners, and so we were at a cafe talking, and Jason said, "DeFi is booming. This is great news because it's going to revolutionize finance. It's going to revolutionize banking. It's going to be great." And he said, we should do something, and we should build something to support this evolution, support this innovation. And so we started thinking, and I said, okay, I'm open to doing a DeFi project, but I don't want to compete with existing projects. I don't want to compete with existing platforms. I mean, I'm an avid supporter of them. In instances, I'm an investor and a stakeholder. So my goal was never to create a better product that already exists, although we ended up doing that. But it was more like, what problems can we solve if we did a DeFi project? And I asked him, what is the biggest problem you have as the CEO of a global bank, a digital bank, that we can solve using the opportunities that exist in the DeFi space now? And he said, without hesitation, the negative interest rates, because there's so many currencies, so many types of accounts earning fees and negative interest rates that, we thought that wasn't fair to people who just wanted to secure their funds and put it in a bank and ended up with less year after year. Right. And then he said, what problem do you think we can solve on the crypto side, in the crypto market, on the DeFi side of things? And again, I thought about it, and I thought there is immense value creation in the space. However, regardless of who I speak to, a common thread is not being able to easily access the value they create in the DeFi platforms in their daily lives. For example, I know a lot of founders in DeFi whose net worth is incredible, but they can't even go and buy a new car. They can't even go and buy a house because that value created is very difficult to transfer into a usable traditional setting for a lot of people. So we thought, what can we do to solve both these problems? And immediately the idea of EQIFI was born, because I suggested that we use the value creation, the returns, the incredible products that have been invented and created in the DeFi to return more than 0% interest on banking accounts. And in return, I said, on the DeFi side, if we provide banking services to these entrepreneurs, to these investors, to these users who've done really well for themselves in the past few years, then it's a win-win. We solve both problems at the same time. And that was the genesis of the EQIFI platform, a DeFi platform powered by a licensed and regulated bank. So in one single login, you can see your crypto, you can see your returns, you can see your cash, and go between those assets and different types of products with seamless ease.
This is fantastic. It's a very strong example of how starting with the problems and with the desire of solving those stringent problems always results into massive growth and value creation for your users. Now let's talk about DeFi, because 2021 I think it was the year of DeFi, and 2022 seems to be the year when DeFi is going to defy everything else around. So in your opinion, can you tell me from your point of view, how do you see the growth of DeFi adoption in 2021? Because I think personally we've started hearing about DeFi late 2020, mostly in the markets that we were back then. But the more the year progressed, DeFi became a very, very important part of the narrative and in the financial disruption. So I'm curious to hear from your point of view how the growth is feeling right there in the middle of the battlefield.
That's a great question. So I'm biased. I'm building a platform that brings traditional finance, traditional banking rails together with extremely innovative decentralized financial products. So of course, I see an incredible growth opportunity and a very, very bright future for both DeFi and in banking and finance industries as a whole, as well as for everyone who's been excluded from the existing systems, all the disenfranchised, underbanked, unbanked, everyone who never had an opportunity to earn a yield on the savings they have are going to be welcoming DeFi with open arms. However, I think the DeFi movement, if you look back a little, it started in 2017 with Bancor and Synthetics. So it's not as young as a lot of people think. A lot of people think it happened this year, but it didn't.
Right, yeah.
So the growth, the true exponential growth, started late Q4 of 2019. And then continued throughout 2020 because we were locked up and fearing of this pandemic that started going around globally and being recognized as an existential threat.
Correct.
So people who lost their jobs, who lost their opportunities to earn a living through interaction with other people and working in-person jobs, realize they need to find alternatives. And here you have the DeFi movement and as a catalyst to that, how am I going to stay at home and earn a living if I'm a waitress, if I'm a bartender, kind of mentality, if I'm a chef.
So
that's
COVID has become this catalyst for a massive or faster adoption than it was expected in 2019 when it was just getting started basically in the market.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in 2022, we can have, in my opinion, we can have two pathways for DeFi. It'll either continue to go like wildfire, like it has been this year, which is really great because that's that type of adoption really changes lives.
Yeah.
Or the other pathway is less violent and less drastic, but also equally desirable, true adoption of DeFi technologies and products by more established entities. And if you ask me which one do you want, I'm happy with either direction, because we thought we need to be licensed and regulated and not play the anonymous, unknown source, programmatic. Everything is programmatic. We don't care, about jurisdiction kind of approach, because what I've seen, again, we care about security very much. So we've been monitoring the hacks and the exploits that are happening in the space prior to launching our project. And if you look at the projects, the majority of the projects that get hacked are anonymous projects. Correct. Because that's a shroud of darkness over who owns it, who is managing it, who is developing it, who's safeguarding the value that these platforms, sometimes in the hundreds of millions, are accumulating, is very important. If you don't put a face with any of that, then you never know. Was it an inside job? Was it a real hack? What happened? And those kind of examples really sabotage the growth of our industry, both crypto as a whole and DeFi and banking to a certain extent. The future of banking is not physical branches and tellers, giving you cash. The future of banking is digital currencies and cryptocurrencies and virtual banking facilities for everyone to use and benefit from. So I think by creating EQIFI in a way where it's licensed, regulated, completely transparent, audited, we created this opportunity for others to follow in those footsteps. And since we launched, there have been several larger organizations that realized, we don't have to be worried about regulation. We can welcome it and still innovate and still do exciting things and be inclusive and help people. So I hope that 2022 is the continuation of that, and we don't see adverse legislature, adverse regulation anywhere in the world that puts a damper on it, because the appetite is there. The jobs have not come back. Corona has not gone anywhere. It's still around. It's still being talked about and occupying our lives and agendas. So I see exponential growth for DeFi, but I can't tell if it's going to be on the retail side like wildfires, or it's going to be on the institutional side like us, more established entities coming in and saying, this is good. This is going to save me money. This is going to allow me to innovate and offer things I couldn't offer to my customers and follow suit.
Fantastic. Actually, you answered to another one of my questions, which was related to predictions for 2022. But I'd like to take a step back. So when you were talking about 2022, you said that there are two scenarios here for DeFi. Either it's going to continue its aggressive growth, or it's going to be stopped, or in some form is going to have a slower growth. What do you think that would be the triggers for both of these scenarios? What would trigger even more massive growth, or what would trigger a damper in the growth?
Let me clarify first. So I see really strong growth into both of the scenarios. One is a little more uncontrolled and unorganized and retail driven. The other one is more organized, platform institution driven. So I wasn't predicting a lull or a stop or a halt. Now that you just created a third scenario for us. The growth can, dwindle to single digits if there is adverse regulation and heavy-handed regulation that comes, or even actions from regulators that's in line with handing out notices, or taking companies and people to court to address issues that they should be addressed in a cooperative way. That's, I think, the only way forward. So the worst case scenario is heavy-handed interference, and then that scares everyone who's not already in it and doesn't really understand it away, which actually does a disservice to the people who most need DeFi products in their lives. The other two, I think they're going to be, like I said, either fueled by communities and the need for people to earn a living without being able to perform their primary jobs and responsibilities in society, and or banks and financial institutions finally realizing how bloated their models are, and how slowly they're innovating, and saying, okay, we should look into these decentralized models because the cost savings are incredible. I mean, today, you can have a few people get together with no money, create a lending pool, and start helping people and find borrowers or lenders on their platform and connect that and make money from it and help others benefit as well. That setup in and itself was a 2-3 year long journey in traditional financial spaces before you get all your licenses to originate loans, then find the financial backer to supply the funds for you, then find the lenders, borrowers, and match them with the lender you have. And I mean, now the speed at which we can launch new businesses, new projects, new DeFi products is it's just never before seen. So I think the growth is going to continue just for that reason, and barring some really unforeseen interruption, 2022 is going to see DeFi probably reach multiples of where it's right now, all fueled by either the people who need these products and learn about it because the government is not saying this is criminal, or institutions realizing we can make more money. I mean, I don't expect big banks to be big Samaritans and want to help people. No, it's just the bottom line. Their profits are going lower and lower, margins are getting lower, and the product suites they have are from 1980s. So eventually someone in those organizations is going to say, this is good, let's adopt the technology and create our own products using it.
Fantastic. Oh, one more question, the last question. Yesterday in the US, I'm a bit confused about the time zones now, but we've seen a bunch of CEOs, crypto blockchain CEOs, taking a trip to the Capitol Hill and have that very famous Congress hearing. What are your thoughts on what has been discussed there? And what do you think that's going to, what's there to be expected from the lawmakers in their stance towards crypto, blockchain, and DeFi?
I think the meeting of legislators and Congress people with actual crypto entrepreneurs, CEOs, people who've been in this space and understand it, is a small but very important step forward, especially in the United States. Up until this point, if you look at all government announcements, every SEC, FTC, whatever three-letter agency action, there hasn't been a single instance where the government reached out and tried to connect with people that are leading these efforts and that are going to be affected by any kind of regulation that comes into the space. So it's a very small step, but with huge impact if they follow suit. Now, I do not expect any legislative solutions to be presented or passed in the next year because in the US, the government moves very slowly and it's deliberate and there's a lot of conversations. So I don't know what the impact is going to be. Now, if you look at the market sentiment, it was very positive about what happened. Because again, this is the first time they said, hey, we care about, a few of you coming to the Capitol Hill and voicing your opinions, because we want to have that side of the conversation too, as opposed to going behind closed doors and talking to bank executives and regulators and people who don't unfortunately own any crypto yet. They don't understand it. And in some instances, the lobbyists for, traditional finance and banks, and they don't want to understand it. It's not in their best interest to say crypto is good, because they're looking at short-term maybe impact and seeing it as negative. I mean, I'm a third-generation banker, so my family has been in banking and finance for quite some time. And to me, this is exciting. What crypto is doing, what DeFi is doing is exciting, because that's the next generation of banking and finance we're going to have and be able to offer to an even more bigger and larger portion of the population all over the world, and off when that time comes. But right now, all of the prior conversations has been crypto is bad, it's used by tax evaders, it's bad, it's used by criminals, which are completely false statements. But I'm assuming there's someone behind those that's going to benefit from them. That's why they're being made, because they're not factual. If someone is saying something that's evading the facts, you have to look at the source and try to understand why are they saying that? What is in it for them? And this hearing that included crypto CEOs was very exciting for me. Now, the content, the questions, if you look at the transcripts of it, it's very basic. It's very primary things. And so I think there is a long road ahead of us everywhere in the world, every government, to educate the government, educate the lawmakers, educate the regulators, and let them understand that, yes, we need regulation and it's welcome, but it has to be done in a way that doesn't stymie innovation.
Exactly.
Because what happened? Go ahead.
Exactly. It's very, very important to not become an obstacle in the way of innovation, just out of these fears of the unknown. Because once you don't have the information, automatically you're gonna be afraid of taking steps into some sort of technology that you don't understand. And I agree with you. Education, it has to be a very, very important step in mostly the next 12 months. And hopefully we'll see more experts like you, being more and more vocal about the impact and the back end of DeFi, crypto, and everything else that has to do with the technology. So we send out very clear signals to the adopters, to legislators, that this is not the big bad wolf, is actually the future of finance. And at the end of the day, criminals, they also use fiat currency, right? So it goes both ways.
The biggest pool of criminals is US dollars. That globally it's used. We don't ban US dollars or say US government is funding terrorism, although you can make that claim if you want to be really loose with your claims. It's the same thing as saying Bitcoin is used by criminals. Oh, okay, exactly. Then, but I mean, you have the perfect example where you live. I mean, look at UAE and the technological innovation, both blockchain and crypto and otherwise, how much it's been embraced and welcomed there. And that's because someone took time to sit down and educate the leaders there and talk to them and say, look, this is the technology. It's not good or bad. It is a technology. It is a tool. We can use it for good. We can use it for bad. And because of the mindset that, the leaders in UAE have, both Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they embraced it. Instead of saying, oh, yeah, maybe people will use Bitcoin to commit crimes, they said, no, we're going to have regulation. We're going to have licenses. You want to start a company and you abide by these ground rules, welcome. And look at how much economic prosperity that has brought. I mean, it's incredible. And if US wants to play the heavy-handed game and lose all this innovation to other jurisdictions, because we're global. The world has become a global economic theater. There's no more like, oh, I'm going to stay in this country because it's my country. A lot of the business decisions are made because of tax reasons. People start a company in Silicon Valley, like look at Microsoft, look at Amazon, look at Facebook, and then move the headquarters to Ireland because that's the tax jurisdiction that welcomes them and presents the most opportunities. So, in that light, I really hope that this is a good first step globally for governments to open up and say, hey, we want to regulate this. Who wants to come and be a part of that conversation? And I am more than happy to do it wherever the duty calls. I mean, I spoke to the government of Gibraltar. I spoke to the government of Malta. We spoke to the officials in Dubai in the past 3-4 years. We have a lobbying group here in the US. I always try to reach out and educate our leaders here because, again, once someone's educated, once they understand the technology and the tool set and what it can do, it's a no-brainer. From that point on, you're like, oh, of course, why did we wait this long? But until you get to that point, there's so much fear, uncertainty, doubt, misinformation that's being constantly fed to the public and the governments. We have a long road ahead of us.
Absolutely, and I think the press and the media has a massive role here to help propagate positive messages and educational messages. This is one of the reasons why Finsight.news was born earlier this year. We've seen a lot of misinformation going around, and we really want to become an instrumental part of educating both adopters and governments across the world by giving a platform to entrepreneurs such as yourself to come and talk about things that might be scary at first, but with a bit of curiosity, you really get to see the benefit.